The smell of fresh paint hit me before I even opened the bedroom door, which was odd considering I'd left that morning in labor and Daniel had promised to stay home from work to wait for news from the hospital. Our bedroom. The sanctuary where I'd nested for 9 months, where I'd carefully arranged everything for our first night home as a family of 3, was now Arctic white with navy accents, my grandmother's rocking chair replaced with a modern gaming setup, and my belongings packed in boxes labeled storage, in my mother-in-law's distinctive handwriting. The question wasn't why Carol had done this. She'd been trying to erase me from Daniel's life for 5 years, but rather why my husband had let her do it while I was pushing out what he believed was his child. Surprise. Carol stood in the center of the room, arms spread wide like a game show host revealing a prize. We've been working all day. Isn't it wonderful? Behind her, my father-in-law Richard avoided eye contact, and Daniel sat on the new leather chair where my nursing station used to be, playing with his phone like a teenager caught skipping school. I shifted the baby carrier, my body screaming from 23 hours of labor and an emergency C-section. Where are my things? Oh, we've organized everything, Carol said breezily. Daniel mentioned you'd been letting things pile up, pregnancy brain and all, so we took the initiative. A fresh start for everyone. A fresh start. I set the carrier down carefully, watching my son's tiny face scrunch in sleep. How thoughtful. Daniel, you want to explain why you thought redecorating our bedroom while I was giving birth was appropriate. He didn't look up from his phone. Mom said it would be a nice surprise. Help you focus on the baby instead of other things. Other things. I walked slowly to what used to be my dresser, now replaced with a minimalist shelf unit. Like my clothes, my jewelry, the birthing affirmations I had on the mirror. Those were a bit morbid, Carol interjected. All that talk about pain and breathing. Daniel doesn't need that negativity in his space. His space? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. This is our bedroom. Our home. Well, technically, Richard started, but Carol shot him a look that could freeze hell. Technically what, Richard? I turned to face him, noting how he stepped back slightly. Nothing, dear. You must be exhausted. Why don't you rest? Where? My rocking chair is gone. The bed has been moved. Even the blackout curtains I installed for nursing are gone. I gestured to the new sheer panels. Were you planning on me sleeping in the nursery? About that, Carol said, her smile faltering slightly. We've converted the nursery into a home office for Daniel. He'll need space to work with the baby crying all hours. The room spun slightly. I gripped the doorframe. You converted the nursery into an office. Just temporarily. Daniel finally looked up. Until we figure out a better arrangement. Mom thinks the baby should sleep in our room anyway for the first few months. Your room, I corrected. Since apparently this is your room now. Your space. Your fresh start. Don't be dramatic, Veronica, Carol sighed. We're trying to help. A baby changes everything. Daniel needs to maintain some sense of self. And I don't. Well, you're a mother now. That's your identity. She said it like it was obvious, like I'd ceased to exist as a person the moment I'd given birth. I walked to the boxes, opening the one marked May C. Inside were my journals, my mother's pearls, the ultrasound photos I'd kept on my nightstand. Everything that made this room mine, dismissed as miscellaneous. Daniel, I said quietly, did you even come to the hospital? Of course I did. I was there for a while. He shifted uncomfortably. But Mom needed help with the furniture delivery, and you were taking forever. 23 hours, I interrupted. I was in labor for 23 hours. Had an emergency C-section. Nearly pulled out on the table. We didn't know that. Carol protested. You said everything was fine. I said that when I was 8 centimeters dilated and trying not to scare him. I looked at Daniel. Before you left. Before you chose furniture shopping over your child's birth. The delivery window was only 4 hours. He started. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. The baby stirred in his carrier, making those tiny newborn sounds that should have had everyone cooing. Instead, Carol wrinkled her nose. Is he supposed to sound like that? Like a baby? Yes, Carol. He's supposed to sound like a baby. I picked up the carrier. Where exactly am I supposed to feed him? Since you've removed all the nursing furniture. Oh, we assumed you'd be using formula, Carol said brightly. So much more convenient. Daniel can help with night feedings that way. I looked at Daniel. You told her we discussed this. That I decided to breastfeed. He shrugged. Plans change. Whose plans? My voice was dangerously quiet now. Because I don't recall changing mine. Now, Veronica. Richard tried again. Everyone's tired. Why don't we discuss this tomorrow? Tomorrow? I laughed, harsh and bitter. Tomorrow when what? When you've redecorated the kitchen. Converted the living room into Daniel's man cave. Tell me, what other fresh starts are you planning? You're overreacting, Carol said, but her voice had lost some of its confidence. It's just paint and furniture. It's my life. The words exploded out of me. My home. My safe space that you invaded while I was literally bringing life into this world. The baby started crying, sharp wails that filled the room. I fumbled with the carrier straps, my incision screaming as I lifted him out. Oh, he's so loud. Carol covered her ears. Daniel, make him stop. How? Daniel looked panicked. I don't. Veronica, can't you? Shh, it's okay, sweet boy. I whispered, bouncing carefully. Mama's here. About that, Carol said, raising her voice over the crying. We were thinking Mama is so informal. Perhaps Mother would be more appropriate. I stared at her. Actually stared, like she'd grown a second head. You want to dictate what my son calls me? Our grandson, she corrected. And yes, we have opinions. We've been parents longer than you have. By about 6 hours, I shot back. Though you'd have to ask Daniel exactly how long, since he wasn't there to see his son born. That's not fair, Daniel started. Fair? I rounded on him. Was it fair when you left me alone and terrified? Fair when the doctor asked for my emergency contact and I had to give them my sister because my husband was picking out throw pillows? We got you the best care, Carol insisted. Private room, top doctors. That my insurance paid for. From my job. Which reminds me. I walked to the boxes again. Baby still crying against my shoulder. Where's my laptop? My work files. Oh, those are in storage. Carol waved dismissively. You won't be needing those for at least a year. We've discussed it with Daniel's company. They're willing to let you stay on their insurance as long as you don't work. You discussed my career with Daniel's company? My voice had gone very quiet again. The baby sensed it, his cries softening to whimpers. Well, someone had to be practical, Carol said. You certainly weren't thinking clearly, planning to return to work after 6 weeks. A mother's place is with her child. And a father's place is providing for his family, Daniel said, finally finding his voice. Mom's right. It doesn't make sense for you to work when I make enough. When you make enough, I repeated. Interesting. Tell me, Daniel, how much do I make? He blinked. I don't. What does that matter? How much do I make? I don't know, okay? 40, 50,000? Richard winced. Even Carol looked uncomfortable. Try 130,000, I said softly. Plus bonuses. Plus stock options. But sure, let's throw that away so you can feel like a provider. The room fell silent except for the baby's soft fussing. That's not possible, Daniel stammered. You're just a what? I challenged. Just a marketing director? Just a woman? Just your wife who should be grateful for your $40,000 salary and your mother's interior design skills. Now wait a minute, Carol started. No, you wait. I shifted the baby, wincing as my incision pulled. I've waited 5 years. Waited while you criticized my cooking, my decorating, my family. Waited while you told Daniel he could do better. Waited while you slowly convinced him that I was lucky to have him. You were lucky. Carol burst out. Do you know how many women would kill for a man like Daniel? Stable, handsome, from a good family. A man who left me in labor to go furniture shopping. I walked to the diaper bag, the one they hadn't touched because it was too beneath them. A man who let his mother erase me from my own bedroom. That Prince Charming? You're emotional, Richard said. Postpartum hormones. Don't. My voice could have cut glass. Don't you dare dismiss me as hormonal when I come home from major surgery to find my life packed in boxes. I reached into the diaper bag, pulling out a manila envelope. My hands were steady now, despite everything. What's that? Daniel asked, suddenly alert. Your fresh start, I said, handing it to him. Divorce papers. Signed and dated this morning, right before my water broke. What? Carol snatched the envelope from Daniel's slack fingers. This is ridiculous. You can't divorce him. You just had a baby. Yes, I did. I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Would you like to know something interesting about the baby, Carol? Something in my tone must have warned them. Richard stepped forward. Carol clutched the papers, and Daniel. Daniel just stared. The thing is, I continued, adjusting the baby so they could see his face. Pregnancy math is funny. You count 40 weeks from the last period, not conception. Easy to get confused about dates. What are you saying? Daniel's voice was strangled. I'm saying that when you were in Vegas for your bachelor party redux last April, you remember, the one where you turned off your phone for 4 days. I was at a medical conference in Boston. So, Carol demanded. So, I ran into someone. My college boyfriend, actually. Now a pediatric surgeon. Recently divorced. I looked at Daniel. We had dinner. Wine. Conversation about how my husband needed to find himself with his frat brothers while I was home dealing with your mother's wedding planning for the vow renewal neither of us wanted. Daniel's face had gone white. Veronica. One thing led to another, I continued calmly. And here we are. Fresh start indeed. You're lying, Carol whispered. You're just trying to hurt him. Check the diaper bag, I said. Side pocket. DNA test results. Rush job, cost a fortune, but worth it for this moment. Daniel lunged for the bag, papers scattering. He found the results, hands shaking as he read. Probability of paternity, 0%. He read in a monotone. This can't be right. Oh, it's right. Just like it's right that you spent the last 9 months planning a nursery for another man's baby while letting your mother redecorate our lives. I took the baby back to his carrier. Though technically, it's my house. My name on the deed, my down payment, my mortgage payments for 5 years while you found yourself. But I love you, Daniel said desperately. We can work through this. Like you worked through missing the birth? Through choosing your mother over me every single time? Through making me feel like I was never enough? I shook my head. No, Daniel. You love the idea of me. The wife who'll disappear into the background of your fresh start. This is entrapment. Carol shrieked. You trapped him. Made him raise another man's child. He's 6 hours old, Carol. The only thing Daniel's raised is my blood pressure. I picked up the carrier again. Besides, you just spent all day making it clear that this isn't his space anymore. I'm just honoring your wishes. Where will you go? Richard asked quietly. He alone seemed to grasp that this was really happening. My sister's. She's been waiting in the car, actually. We loaded my boxes while you were arguing about paint colors. I smiled at their shocked faces. Did you really think I'd come home alone? After Daniel abandoned me at the hospital. I didn't abandon. You left. While I was in labor. To redecorate. I let that sink in. My sister stayed. Held my hand. Cut the cord. Everything a partner should do. But the baby, Carol said faintly. Our grandson is not your grandson. You just spent an hour making that abundantly clear. Biology matters, remember? I headed for the door. The divorce papers are straightforward. I keep the house, my car, my retirement. Daniel keeps his fresh start and his mother. This is illegal, Carol called after me. Fraud. We'll sue. I paused at the doorway. For what? For getting pregnant while my husband was in Vegas. For keeping my own house. For packing boxes you so helpfully filled. I shifted the carrier. Good luck with that. Veronica, please, Daniel said, and for the first time in years, he sounded genuinely lost. I know I screwed up, but we can fix this. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want. What I want, I said clearly, is to never again come home to find my life erased. What I want is a partner who shows up. What I want is to raise my son without your mother's constant criticism. Your son, he repeated. Not our son. No, Daniel. Not our son. You made that choice when you left the hospital. When you let her pack up my things. When you decided your fresh start was more important than our family. I left then, walking carefully down the stairs I'd climbed hundreds of times, past the kitchen where Carol had criticized every meal I'd made, through the living room where Daniel had chosen his mother's comfort over mine time and time again. My sister Emma was waiting in the car, engine running. She jumped out when she saw me, taking the carrier while I eased myself into the passenger seat. How'd it go? She asked. About as expected. Carol called me hormonal. Daniel played victim. Richard said nothing useful. I touched my incision, checking the bandage. Did you get everything? Everything important. Left the crap they picked out. She secured the baby in the back. You okay? I will be. I looked back at the house one last time. The bedroom light was on, and I could see shadows moving, probably Carol directing the boys to unpack those boxes, restore Daniel's bachelor pad. For what it's worth, Emma said as she pulled away, I think you're incredibly brave. Or incredibly stupid. Single mother, fresh out of surgery, no plan. With a 6-figure job, a house, and a sister who'll babysit for free. Emma interrupted. Plus, no toxic in-laws. Sounds like a win to me. The baby fussed, and I reached back to touch his tiny hand. He grabbed my finger, holding tight. Hey, little man, I whispered. Ready for our fresh start? He yawned, settling back to sleep. In the rearview mirror, I watched my old life disappear. Somewhere in that house, Daniel was probably realizing what he'd lost. Carol was probably ranting about ungrateful wives. Richard was probably pouring himself a drink. But that wasn't my problem anymore. My problem was healing, both physically and emotionally. My problem was raising my son to be better than the man I'd married. My problem was building a life that no one could pack into boxes while I wasn't looking. You know what the funny thing is? I said to Emma as we headed toward her apartment. I actually loved him once. Before Carol convinced him he was settling. Before he started believing he deserved better. And now. Now I know I deserve better. I closed my eyes, exhausted but oddly at peace. And I'm going to make sure my son knows it too. The fresh start Carol had orchestrated so carefully. It was mine now. And unlike the sterile white bedroom they created, mine would be filled with color, chaos, and unconditional love. No assembly required.